there are many people who have a significant role in the history of Sacramento and in telling the story, not in making the history, but in retelling it or interpreting it. But there are two who really stand out and who we owe a big debt to. One is Joseph McGowan. He was a professor of history at CSUS and was the head of the history department for a long time. Joe started out as growing up in the Bay Area and actually, I think, studied for the priesthood, but decided that that wasn't for him. And he became a high school teacher and then eventually became a history professor at CSUS. There are a lot of things that lie at his doorstep, but not the least of which is he believed very strongly that local history was important. And that's at a time when the academic community didn't care much about local history. So he pushed it, and in fact, he wrote a 3-volume history of the Sacramento Valley that was done in about 1952, 3, 4, something like that. And it stands to this day as one of the really best histories that have been done. Joe founded the Sacramento County Historical Society. Most of the historians in the community today that came out of CSUS came out of his program. Most of the people I went to school with that were in history, they're his students. Aubrey Neesham's another character who's a really important figure to Sacramento. He has quite an interesting career. Aubrey came out of the University of California, Berkeley. He went to work for the National Park Service and eventually became a historian of the National Park Service for the Western United States. He was a close friend of Aubrey Drury, who was an important figure in state and national parks. And he was very much involved in the preservation movement, what we know in the United States as the preservation movement. One of his greatest achievements, in Aubrey's case, was Aubrey was the origin of the thought behind many of the historic districts we have in the state. And he tried to give each one its own character. Columbia is one of his projects that he was very deeply involved in, but perhaps the best known is Bodie. And in Bodie, he coined a phrase for it. Let's do what he called arrested decay. Let's just try and freeze it in a point in time now. Let's not try and return it. Let's just try and hold it like it is. He's involved in almost every historic district in the country, in the state, but the key for us is Old Sacramento in many, many ways. He's the father of the Old Sacramento Project. And it is his wheelings and dealings that brought that project to what we know it to be today.